as has been the practice, or the practice rather, where our membership place within the meeting room various issues that affect them. It is a commitment of UEFA to look at these areas and to pick out from the kind of discussion to practice rather. Yeah, I'm getting a feedback. I don't know where that is coming from. Okay, the delayed feedback. Okay, right. So let me go again. It has been the practice of UEFA that when our membership within the meeting room hear any concern that is worthwhile to them, we seek out at all times to see how well we can address these. And hence today's webinar is one in which we seek to rise to that. And the webinar today is the beginning of a 4-part series from now until the first Tuesday in December, managing pregnancy toxemia in goats and sheep. And I want to, at the outset, say thanks to Dr. Denny, who has led in this area in preparing the module for us. And also want to say thanks to our presenters who have agreed to present for us and the wider body of persons who have joined us in this webinar. Of course, we do know that when the farmers are out there, training is not one of the things that they might want to move away from the farm to come to. And hence, we don't want to delay them too long. And we want to also only have these webinars within 2.5 hours maximum on a day-to-day basis. While we say this though, I want to urge all the participants to ensure that you are at all the webinars for the next 4 weeks. It's information that you'll get that will be beneficial to you, and so we do not want to have you miss any of them. So I'm asking you to commit yourselves to the 4 weeks of these presentations dealing with managing pregnancy toxemia in goats and sheep. So this morning I want to welcome you all. I want to welcome the 2 presenters, Professor Garcia and Dr. Lalo, or Mr. Lalo. I'm not sure it's doctor. I'm sorry. I think it's doctor. I hope I get it right. Mr. Palmer, I hope you give me the information correctly. So, but you'll correct me nonetheless. So let's have a good day and let's have a good 4 weeks. And as I go, I want to ask members who are here today, as you seek to be in all the webinars, we are hoping, if you are in agreement, to give you a certificate at the end of the 4-week training. And as such, we are asking you then to make a contribution of $2,000 so we can use it to prepare the certificate for you to get. And while we are doing this too, we have started some discussions with Heart NSTA, where we are hoping that at some point they will also be able to certify the farmers who have attended these webinars for the next 4 weeks. So we are asking you from that a contribution of 2,000 Jamaican dollars. Jamaican dollars. Thank you, Kathy. and once you do that, then we'll ensure prayer certificate for you, while at the same time, Heart, we hope, will also certify this webinar, this series of webinar, or this training in its entirety. I'm going to now ask that we receive some endorsements from some personnel who have sent endorsements to these webinars. While we are seeking to highlight them, just want to mention that the College of Agriculture, Science and Education case is one of the persons who have or institutions that have endorsed us, as well as Dr. Hughes from University of the West Indies St. Augustine campus, as well as Dr. Isaac and from the FFA. Could we have those endorsements now, please? Thanks much. Could we have them shared, Dean? This is from the Faculty of Food and Agriculture Office of the Dean, from Professor Mark Woodvira. I'm pleased to endorse the upcoming webinar series, Managing Pregnancy Toxemia in Goats and Sheep. A comprehensive guide, this educational series promises to be a valuable resource for everyone involved in the care of these animals. Pregnancy toxemia is a critical concern in the management of goats and sheep, and it is essential to have a deep understanding of its prevention, diagnosis, and treatment. This webinar series offers a unique opportunity to gain insights from experts in the field, providing valuable knowledge to ensure the well-being of your livestock. I highly recommend attending this series, as it will empower participants with the knowledge and skills needed to effectively manage pregnancy toxemia in goats and sheep. Sincerely, Professor Mark Woodvira. Thank you. This other endorsement comes from, I think it's Dr. Isaac. On behalf of the Department of Food Production Faculty and Food and Agriculture, UWI, I'm delighted to extend my heartfelt endorsement and support for the webinar series titled A Comprehensive Guide to Managing Pregnancy Toxemia in Goats and Sheep in the Caribbean. I believe that this initiative aligns perfectly with our commitment in promoting sustainable and resilient agriculture in the region. Pregnancy toxemia, known as ketosis or twin lamb disease, is a critical health concern for small ruminants in the Caribbean. It poses significant challenges to farmers and livestock practitioners, affecting both animal welfare and the livelihoods of those involved in small ruminant production. As a department dedicated to agricultural research, education, and outreach, we recognize the importance of addressing this issue comprehensively. The objectives of your webinar series, which include disseminating knowledge, sharing best practices, and providing practical guidance for managing pregnancy toxemia, are commendable. We are confident that this initiative will have a positive and lasting impact on small ruminant farming communities in the Caribbean region. We appreciate your decision to addressing the pressing issue and commend your efforts to make valuable resources and expertise accessible to our region's small ruminant producers. Your commitment to improving animal health, agricultural sustainability, and food security in the Caribbean is highly commendable. If there are any specific ways in which the Department of Food Production can contribute to the success of your webinar series, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We eagerly anticipate the launch of this informative and impactful initiative and are grateful for the opportunity to endorse it. Thank you for your dedication to advancing agriculture and animal health in the Caribbean, and we look forward to a successful collaboration. Sincerely, Wendy and Isaac. We now listen to a video from Dr. Hughes.
My name is Martin Hughes, Deputy Dean of Sustainability and Planning and Lecturer in Animal Nutrition and Forage Management in the Department of Food Production, University of West Indies, St. Augustine campus. I'm extremely happy to notice the development in small ruminant in Jamaica at this point in time. I'm also very happy to note the steps that have been taken to improve this sector or the subsector from numerous angles, inclusive of training and development. And in this regard, I am very interested and happy to endorse the upcoming series on pregnancy toxemia that has been delivered or been planned by the United Agriculturists Farmers Association of Jamaica. I urge you, once you are interested, to take this opportunity and develop your skill. It's a great opportunity to invest in your trade, to invest in yourself as we make all efforts to improve the livestock subsector in Jamaica. Once again, I encourage you to register, to participate in this upcoming series on pregnancy toxemia in small ruminants starting from the 14th of November. Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening, and just want to remind you that I am Roy Wickham, President of UAFA. And at this point in time, we invite Mr. Donald Palmer as our moderator for today. At the beginning of the series in managing the issue at hand, to lead us in the way forward as we continue through this webinar. Once again, welcome one and all, and we look forward to us having a productive day. Thank you very much. Mr. Palmer.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning, all our participants, especially those from Jamaica and the wider Caribbean. Welcome to our webinar series, Managing Pregnancy Toxemia in Sheep and Goats, a comprehensive view. As President Wickham stated, I will be the moderator for this session. I'm also the General Secretary for UAFAJ. So what my task is here today is to monitor the whole operation of the process. We intend to bring this thing in about an hour and a half in terms of presentation and stuff like that. So to get the ball rolling, so I recognize there are a few persons here from UAFAJ. Good to have you here. And I also recognize there are some persons from our neighboring CARICOM countries, like Mr. Neil Hardy. I mean, a Barbadian, a product of the Faculty of Agriculture here in Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, pretty soon you hear about the connection between Mr. Neil Hardy, Mr. Lalu, and Professor Garcia. Hopefully we'll have Dr. Leroy McLean also from Barbados, who will join us and stuff like that. And others. Welcome all of you. Okay, I see Dr. Robert Logan, my lecturer for agriculture. Welcome, sir. I don't want to call too much names because I might get to the show. So let I go straight into the task that was assigned to me. And this assignment is to interview. Hello?
Yeah, this is Leroy McLean. I'm on already.
Could you repeat that?
I said this is Leroy McLean. I'm on already.
Okay, great. Welcome, Dr. McLean, right. So let I get into the task that is assigned to me. And the first person I want to introduce is Professor Gary Wayne Garcia. So Professor Gary Wayne Garcia is a retired professor of livestock science from UWI in September 2019, after 29 years of sterling contribution. His main qualification includes a BSc in general agriculture and a PhD in livestock degree, both from UWI St. Augustine. Professor Garcia career in agriculture started out in the 1980s when he was employed to the Sugarcane Feed Center as an animal productionist. His career as a lecturer in animal production began in 1990 in the then Department of Livestock, Faculty of Agriculture, and since that time, he has also served as a coordinator of animal production teaching at the School of Veterinary Medicine. Later, he also held the responsibilities of livestock operation manager at the University Feed Station. That is between 1991 to 1993, and after several promotions, rose to the rank of professor of livestock in 2011. As coordinator of the production teaching at the School of Veterinary Medicine from 1990 to 2019, Professor Garcia developed and taught the animal production and utilization undergrad courses therein. He was instrumental in developing several initiatives on facility of agriculture, which later became science agriculture, and now the food and agriculture, including 5 postgraduate courses in tropical animal production and developed the discipline and the concept of neurotropical animal science production. Professor Garcia was influential in initiating the online teaching methodologies using Google Groups since 2007 and Facebook groups since 2014. Professor Garcia introduced, and it's a very important thing, and every time I talk to Professor Garcia, he's always talking about this, the future vision game simulation teaching methodology into the livestock, just a moment. Professor Garcia introduced the future gaming simulation teaching methodology into the livestock course within the Faculty of Food and Agriculture. He also developed the Open School of Tropical Animal Science and Production, and a website which has been running for the last 16 years. The main channel used by Professor Garcia to deliver his course. Okay, in terms of his scholastic contribution, listen to this. Professor Garcia has produced 5 books, including one on sugarcane derived feeds. His most recent publication was a paper in 2022 on 100 years of teaching research in agriculture at ICA, UCIUE, and St. Augustine campus between 1921 to 2021. He has pioneered publication on the agouti and have developed intensive productions for this species of animal. Further, he developed an ongoing intensive production colony of agouti at the University Field Station since 1996, and is the largest scientific unit living laboratory of this kind in the world, comprising of 150 animals. Professor Garcia has developed for the UAFAJ 3 distant courses, conceptualized and developed the MSc in Tropical Animal Science and Production since 1995. He has also supervised 35 MSc research projects, 4 MPhils, and 7 PhD theses. He has 5 ongoing PhD research projects and has authored and co-authored more than 70 peer-reviewed publications. Today, Professor Gary Wayne Garcia will discuss understanding pregnancy toxemia in sheep and goats. Let's welcome to the platform Professor Gary Wayne Garcia. Welcome, Professor Garcia. Okay, while we await Professor Garcia to upload his presentation and start his thing, I want to take this privilege again to invite to welcome all our persons who are online. I see quite a few of them. I really don't want to call names because I want to get into trouble. But I see Mr. Peter McCookman, originator from Canada. Welcome, Mr. McCook. I know you have some goats, and this will provide a very useful piece of information. And right. Quite a few persons, welcome to our webinar series. And this will be for the next 4 weeks. As President, we cannot state it. Thanks.
Okay, Professor Garcia, his opening screen is being shared, so I don't know if he's hearing us. Professor Garcia, it's your time, sir.
Yes, I'm hearing you. There was a period to change. Good morning. The UAFA administrator, could you change the slides for me, please? Hello? Hello? Are you all hearing me?
Yes, Professor.
We are
We're
hearing,
hearing
we don't know
clearly.
what to change.
Right, good.
We would know what to change. So,
Right. I will just say when to change. So put
okay.
on that slide.
All right.
Okay, next slide. Sorry, I was on mute. Is everyone hearing me now?
Yes, we are hearing you. I'm hearing you. You should
Okay,
be
could you
right.
could we go back to the first slide?
All right. So Dean, okay. All right.
Right. Beautiful. We seem to have been having a bandwidth problem. So I just want to start. Hello, everybody from St. Augustine, Trinidad and Tobago. This is our icon tree of the campus. Next slide, please. Good. Today, my presentation is understanding pregnancy toxemia in sheep and goats. And I was overwhelmed by the introduction of Mr. Palmer. Next slide, please. Right. What I shall share with you this morning is, first of all, to express my sincere thanks to Mr. Donald Palmer, who has been having discussions with me on agriculture for the last couple of years, and he has been doing a very good job. And again, I would like to thank him for that excellent introduction. I will just say briefly something about myself. What is pregnancy toxemia? What type of disease it is, to describe the symptoms and what to do to look for with pregnancy toxemia. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The reasons for feeding animals, describe how to prevent and treat pregnancy toxemia. To leave with you all 7 takeaway. Yes. Could you? Okay. Next slide. Okay, something about myself. I've been around in this business for about 45 years, but I'm a fraud. Next slide. Why I'm a fraud? Next slide. Is because Mr. Palmer did not know. But just go, okay, let me just tell you. Why I'm a fraud is because Mr. Palmer did not know that I have never had any experience with pregnancy toxemia, because my partner in crime and I, Mr. Lalo, we worked on the development of production and feeding models for sheep and goats. And Mr. Lalo is who I consider to be one of the best animal nutritionists in the world. Next slide. Right. The results of our crime, because he was my partner in crime, is that we never experienced pregnancy toxemia with the sheep and goats in our production unit or within the units of our collaborating farmers. These were other people's problems because we understood how to feed animals properly. Next slide. What is pregnancy toxemia? It is known as ketosis or hypoglycemia in sheep. I reviewed 15 articles spreading from 1959 to 1989, 31 years. And basically, pregnancy toxemia is the presence of ketone bodies in the blood, ketone bodies in the urine, and low blood sugar and low levels of hepatic glycogen. In other words, no sugar or energy given nutrients within the animal's blood circulatory system. Next slide, please. It occurs in late pregnancy and could lead to the death of the fetus or feti, of ewes, and those if not treated in time. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. I think we have a bandwidth problem. Right. What type of disease is it? First, it is a disease. First, a disease is any non-normal state of a plant or animal. Pregnancy toxemia is a nutritional and management disease. Genetics, really. Once we feed the animals properly. And pregnancy toxemia is a disease of females only, female animals. Next slide. I must apologize for the problems.
Professor Garcia, might I recommend that you turn off your video, please?
Delivery. Next. If I could what?
I'm recommending you turn off your video.
Okay.
To see if that will help.
Beautiful. Right. Thank you. What type of disease it is? Why could we consider our animals lucky? And I use the term lucky. Could you go back to the previous slide, please? Go back to item 4. Could you go back to item 4, please? Right. Why should we consider our animals lucky? If we experience pregnancy. Go. Right. What is the signal to you if you experience pregnancy toxemia with at least one animal? It means you are not feeding your pregnant animals properly, or those in your employ do not carefully understand how to feed the pregnant animals. And this is the most important thing that we must take away from this exchange of information. Next slide, please. Describe the symptoms and what to look for. In other words, how the disease progresses. It is true the nutritional demands of the females in late pregnancy, and that is the bottom line. She requires a lot of nutrients, especially if she has multiple births inside of her, multiple feti. Next slide. The symptoms. The earliest signs, the animals tend to appear as if they are blind and bouncing into things. And they sometimes don't want to move, and they show signs of depression and lack of movement. Other symptoms are abnormal postures, tremors, painful grunts, labored breathing, staggering gait, and recumbency. They look like if they're drunk. And there could also be a loss of reflexes, coma, and ultimately death. So the animal seems to be lifeless. Next slide, please. Let me go back to talking about the reasons for feeding animals. One, maintenance. That is to keep the animals alive. So when an animal ingests feed, just like humans, it first has to get enough nutrients to stay alive. Secondly, it has to grow or put on weight, muscle or body fat mainly. Thirdly, it has to have all the trace minerals and vitamins to prevent and control diseases. Fourthly, reproduction and fertility to enhance conception. And this is very important for females. These are some of the minerals and trace minerals to ensure proper fertility, as well as the vitamins. Next slide. Five, products of conception. Fetal growth. With sheep and goats, there can be from 2 to 6 feti or offspring within the reproductive tract of the female. This is a big load or burden and the main cause of pregnancy toxemia. During the last third of gestation, there is competition within the pregnant female for nutrients. But for fetal growth, this is the animal's priority. So what happens is that the nutrients in the animal in middle to late pregnancy goes towards the fetus. And then it will go towards laying down body fat or energy. But the problem is, if the animal is deficient in energy, it is going to take the energy from its body reserves so that the fetus could grow. And this is where the problem lies with pregnancy toxemia. And then sixthly, lactation and milk production. In early lactation, mammals cannot ingest enough energy to maintain their body and to produce milk. So what they do is they draw on the fat body reserves to be this fat gestation, so that during lactation, when they are suckling their offspring, they can mobilize their body reserves. Next slide, please. Feeding for growth. And there are different types of growth: fetal growth, birth and early growth, growth from weaning to sexual maturity, preparation for conception, early fetal growth, which is 1 to 3 months, late gestation or fetal growth, which is 4 to 5 months gestation. And here is where pregnancy toxemia manifests itself. She belly full, but she hungry still. She belly big, but she maga. Ribs on display. And you see that scrubbing board appearance of the ribs. Body fat decomposition in late gestation is very important. And this is what you must not feed to animals in late gestation: old grass, hard and fibery grass, newspapers, or cardboard. Next slide. Describe how to prevent and treat pregnancy toxemia. What must you do when you begin to see symptoms? The best treatment is 110 grams per day by mouth of propylene glycol or glycerin. That is a rapidly absorbing form of energy. You also use molasses or glucose circulatory system as soon as possible. Next slide. Next slide, please. It seems that the bandwidth and the internet communication is unstable. What must you do to prevent and treat it? Ensure that all pregnant ewes or does are on adequate planes of nutrition, particularly in their last trimester of pregnancy. Husbandry and management procedures aimed at the ease and early identification of weak pregnant ewes would be important. Hence, that is, if you have crack corn, any peas, or anything that it has grains in it, these would be important things to feed to animals that are in late gestation. 7 takeaway messages. Following the crisp takeaway messages that I would like to share with you from this presentation. 1, pregnancy toxemia is a nutritional disease of female pregnant sheep and goats in the middle to last trimester of their pregnancy. It is a disease of fertile and prolific sheep and goats. so that we must take good care of our animals to benefit from their prolificacy and their fertility. Next slide. The pregnant sheep not on good nutrition in the middle to late gestation will show the unusual signs and symptoms as earlier described. So you must be very observant of your flock. It's closer. Then you will see them showing signs of recovery. Bad sign. It is too late, as in the in utero animals have died, and soon their decomposition will become toxic to the females, and soon she will die. So once you see that nice sign of the sheep showing signs of recovery, that is a bad sign. Next slide, please. The animals that are feeding and nutritional priorities on your farm are your animals in early and middle pregnancy to ensure that you capitalize and benefit from their fertile and prolific animals. That is, if you have a feeding supply problem, your animals in early to middle pregnancy are your priorities. So make sure and feed them well. The next important group are your animals in late gestation, as they have to grow the fetus and lay down the body reserves for early lactation. Next slide. What is the signal to you if you experience pregnancy toxemia with at least one animal? You are not feeding your pregnant animals properly, or those in your employ do not fully understand how to feed the pregnant animals. This is an important takeaway message, because pregnancy toxemia is something you do not want to see on your farm. Next slide. Some follow-up required. There are three things I would like to suggest that your organization focus on. We need to have a good course on production and nutritional modeling that is location specific. And why I use the location specific concept is that one strategy or one approach does not fit all. We have to use what we have in our local environments. And this is what we have to attack. How to use our location-specific resources properly. Secondly, using body conditions of determining the nutritional status they tell you about your nutrition status of your animals as they stand. Thirdly, collective marketing and branding to benefit. Next slide, please. Next slide, please.
Not hearing anything now. Are we still on a slide?
I think we lost Dr. Lana, Dr. Garcia, not hearing him.
Hello, this is Leroy McLean. I'm not hearing anything. I'm just seeing the presentation on the screen now.
I think we lost him now. Let me check.
No, I am here. I'm here.
Okay, just a moment. Professor Garcia,
But-
are you on
but-
in from Stockdale building?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just 2 officers away from you, and we are having poor connection here from Trinidad. So that's the situation. So I have to
Very,
apologize to
poor.
our viewers, no what, participant, that the internet in Stockdale from Stockdale building has been unstable, and apparently that's why Professor Garcia has been in and out. And I have also been in and out because I'm 2 officers away from Professor Garcia at this point in time. But we'll try to sort that out as soon as possible.
But what we could do is we could make the PowerPoint available to everyone.
Okay, that's not a problem. That's not a problem. And we're trying to get in Mr. Lalu, so I'm asking one of the admins to just call him on his WhatsApp number that I sent him because he's trying desperately to get back into the webinar.
I think he's on now.
He's on. Mr. Lalu is on. Okay, great.
I think perhaps we could take some questions, Donald.
Yes,
I can.
go ahead,
while-
President, and moderate
I'm
that
not-
question section until Mr. Lalu gets up and running.
Right.
Good.
So I'm saying that while Professor Garcia is a little difficulty, we probably could ask persons who are here if they have some questions to field perhaps some of the other persons who are experts in the area could help the discussion so yes, we have the PowerPoint, so we could have it made available to all the participants online on the platform. So we could field some questions. I'm suggesting that moderator that you do that.
What you could do, if you take out
this is Leroy McLean. Are you ready to take any questions or comments?
Yes, moderator,
Yes.
questions or comments. I'm not suggesting that.
Okay.
In interest of
We'll
time.
go for comments first and then questions after.
If I could suggest
comment on Professor Garcia's presentation.
Yes. Again, this is Leroy McLean. One of the points you mentioned was low hepatic glycogen. Now, before I go, I would like to know from those persons who have experienced the problem, sort of what percentage of ewes in a particular farm, what percentage of ewes would be affected, and what is the generally are these young ewes or those which were more advanced in age? I don't know if you got my question, what I'm asking.
Wow.
Okay, did you hear the question, Professor Garcia?
Yeah, I got the question. But this is why I said earlier that Cicero and myself, we never experienced pregnancy toxemia, simply because the animals on very sound
I don't know if
planes of nutrition.
Professor Garcia heard.
And I
Hello?
And I also indicated that on a farm situation, your priority is to feed your animals in early gestation if your objective is to produce offspring. And I really can't say, but I see Cicero is online, and he may be in a better position to address your comment or your question, because as I say, you must feed your pregnant animals in early gestation to avoid pregnancy toxemia. There's no magic.
Yeah, Professor,
if the animals are not being properly fed and they are very fertile, I didn't hear that because the
yeah, Professor. What I'm getting at here is I understand all that you've said, and I'm full agreement with in terms of the nutrition. But I'm wondering if the reason why I asked about the percentage of ewes that may suffer this condition is whether because if a farmer has a number of ewes that are pregnant and you get one or two coming down with it and not the others, it might not be a direct consequence of feeding. But I'm wondering if there's some genetic link which is involved here, because it has been shown that when the particular gene, I think it's the GYS2 gene, is affected, that it leads to low hepatic glycogen and also low glucose disposal in the blood. So I was just wondering if there may be a genetic link in that you may get some animals coming down with it and not others that are being fed the same way.
Okay, thanks, Dr. McLean, for that question, right? So if you wait a little bit, the next presentation will be deal with genetics and breeding practices by Mr. Cicero Lalu, right? And I think the questions they're asking with this, I mean, Mr. Lalu will be able to make a explanation about that. So let's hear from Mr. Lalu presentation on the genetics and breeding practices.
Moderator, there were 2 questions by Leon something or other. You could just look at them and see.
Okay, so
Look at them.
Scotty Leon said, could you give further details on the treatment of the conditions? That's one question. And the next question, how much to give for how long, in what way, with any additional supportive care? I thought I heard Professor Garcia made mention of that, but he could reiterate that, those 2 issues. The treatment factors, and for how long would you give them that?
Well, the treatment factors are the administration of glycerol. And if you don't have that and it's a real emergency, a simple thing like sugar water and molasses water, because what you want to do, you just want to get energy into the animal system in the form of a glucose precursor. And the amount is in the PowerPoint. And I would also suggest that you will probably have to repeat it for a few days. And Mr. Lalo will be the one who could really elaborate on that. So I will put you over to Mr. Lalo.
Okay, thanks, Professor Garcia. So you see that most of the questions that are being asked now has to really give you the realm of what Mr. Lalo has to present. So let us move along by now introducing Mr. Cicero Lalo. Okay.
I just have a comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
My name is Peter McCook, and I run a farm in McCook Farm in St. Mary, Jamaica. And I just want to tell you that you touch more than just Toxemia. You touch on a farmer like myself who is establishing, you touch on how to care for animals, starting from the basic, right? How to care for animal. And for somebody like me, you give more information that I can take back to my farm and emphasize to my worker the caring of animal, from body score going up from when animal in gestation, and starting from there, taking care of the animal. It start from there, body score and go up, not just belly full. And so I have a question regard feeding, but that's in the next section. So good job, good presentation.
Okay, thanks, Mr. McCook, for your comments, and reiterate that. So if you have ever been in UAFAJ, right, and speak to the director of programs, Mr. Kevin McCannon, what we'll tell is that Professor Garcia is a man of plenty material and plenty information, but he's practical and down to earth. We'll also tell you that Mr. Lalo, plenty material, we call him materialist, right, but down to earth. And these are, they can get information into layman terms. So let us introduce Mr. Cicero Lalo now. So Mr. Cicero H.O. Lalo is a retired Jamaican lecturer in animal science who has taught animal nutrition, both at the Bachelor of Science and Master of Science level. He hails from Charlestown in Portland and attended Excelsior High School, and later the University of the West Indies St. Augustine campus. Mr. Lalu's career in agriculture began when he registered to read for a BSc degree in agriculture and later MSc degree in animal science in the Faculty of Agriculture, right? His professional career began when he was employed as a researcher at the Sugarcane Feed Center along with Professor Garcia, right? Where he conducted research on the production of small ruminant. He then moved to the University of the West Indies, where he was a lecturer in animal science and retired from the Department of Food Production within the Faculty of Agriculture as a senior lecturer. Okay, so listen how this Jamaican came to Trinidad and increased the frontier of animal science. During his 25 years work at the University of the West Indies, he has successfully supervised 2 candidates for the award of the Doctor of Philosophy degree in livestock These candidates include Dr. Martin Hughes, who you have heard endorse our webinar series. Dr. Melissa Williams, who is the officer in charge of the Cardi Tobago office. So that is his PhD student. Who candidates for the award of the Master of Philosophy degree in livestock? Mr. Dean Alfred is one. He's a former Chief Executive Officer of the Jamaica Dairy Board. And Mr. Andel Edwards. Mr. Andel Edwards then applied for an upgrade to the PhD degree with Dr. Martin Hughes as a co-supervisor. So let's see what happened. So Mr. Lalu supervised Dr. Martin Hughes. Dr. Martin Hughes then went and co-supervised another MPhil student. Third generation production, Mr. Lalu, right? 12 candidates for the award of the Master of Disease in Livestock. One such person, Mr. Dwight Williams, who's a member of the Climate and Special Project Department. So if you're in UAFAJ, right, you're going to talk about these kind of issues that affect climate change. And I keep referring to the special project. This is led by Mr. Fitzgerald Reed, right? And this committee deals with projects which involve climate change. Here is how Mr. Lalo's competence has been transferred down to generation. Mr. Dwight Williams' empirical framework from his MSc project formed the basis for one of the chapters in Dr. Melissa Williams' PhD thesis. So what we are saying is that Mr. Lalo worked with Mr. Dwight Williams, he developed an empirical framework, then they used that empirical framework to extend the frontier of knowledge in Dr. Melissa Williams' PhD thesis. Great. Over 100 candidates for the water Bachelor of Science degree in agriculture, specializing in livestock, including one of his students here, Mr. Neil Hardy from Barbados, who is doing research on the Barbados black-belly sheep, and he's co-supervised by Dr. Leroy McLean. I hope I get the name correct, Dr. McLean, right? Mr. Lalo has chapters in textbooks, some of which form a standardized textbook in many academic courses. One of his book chapters recommended rated material for this webinar, right? And I will tell you the name of that chapter, right? So it is Appropriate Feeding and Sustainable Feeding System for Yearship Production in the Caribbean by Cicero H. O. Lalo. It's chapter 11, in Sustainable Food Production Practices in the Caribbean, volume 2, edited by Wayne G. Gunpat and Wayne P. Isaac, and it's published by Ian Randall Publication. Okay, great. Let's look at this publication now. Mr. Lalo has published 72 journal articles, both in international, regional, peer-reviewed journals in various subfields of livestock, which include livestock economics. And persons who are familiar with the livestock know that there's not a lot of persons in livestock economics, and Mr. Lalo has pioneered it. When you do the research, I think there's one guy in University of Georgia who actually goes into livestock economics. And Mr. Lalo has extended the frontier, including what I chapter in Dr. Melissa Williams' thesis. We look at the disappearance of yolks of newly hatched mule dogs. We apply some mathematics there. So Mr. Lalo is good at that. His most recent focus has been on the impact of climate change on livestock production. His other areas of research includes the use of bioprotein in animal feed, the use of high-value protein forage as a supplement in animal feed, and applying economic and statistical theories understanding this job-making process in livestock. Okay, having said all of that, today you'll be discussing the use of genetics and breeding practice in reducing the risk of pregnant toxemia in sheep and goats. So let's welcome Mr. Lalo to the platform, and it's your time, Mr. Lalo, to take over. Mr. Lalo, are you hearing us?
Mr. Lalo? He's not, I don't think he's hearing us at all. I notice his mic is open, but he's not speaking. So quite.
And if he needs to unmute.
No, he's not muted.
Okay.
He just need to, his mic is open, but he's not hearing us. Mr. Lalo?
Can Professor Garcia call him and ask him what's the nature of the matter?
Not sure what's going on with him.
Okay, so while we're on wait,
I am hearing. I am hearing. I am
you
hearing.
hearing Mr. Lalu?
Oh, Mr. Lalu is not picking up.
What's going on here?
He's on his screen, his presentation is up, but he's not hearing, or clearly he's not hearing, else he would have responded. So I don't know if a phone call can be made.
Hello, team.
Yes.
While we seek to sort out issues with Mr. Lalu's connectivity, can I ask us to pay attention to what's in the chat? There are 3 comments there. One that says from Miss Vanessa Shatri, we at Baruch as a product by the name of Cal Plus contain calcium, phosphorus, and dextrose. Can this be used as a treatment option? And she went on to say, Cal Plus mainly used in cattle for fever. And she went on to say, in light of the dextrose concentrate in the product, can it be considered a treatment option? Thank you.
I don't know who will take that. There are other
Professor
persons.
Garcia, think you might still be on.
Right.
Okay, I think the best person to is a question Miss Chadwick asked in her recommendation she's given. Which one?
She's asking. She's asking
a question.
Okay, right. So this question,
I'm suggesting it could be tried since it has a glucose precursor in it. So it could be tried.
okay, is Dr. Robert Logan still on? Because I know Dr. Logan is a veterinary officer, he's a practicing vet for the past 30 odd years, since I know from days of COE. So could if Dr. Logan is there?
His microphone is open. Yes, he is.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Yes, are you hearing?
Yes, Dr. Logan, I'm hearing loud and clear.
Yes, certainly, as Dr. Garcia said that it could be tried, it's a little bit unorthodox. We normally just go for the glycerin, the propylene glycol, the glucose orally to get the carbohydrates precursors quickly into the rumen and then into the blood. I've not heard of using dextrose, presumably intravenously. I don't know. Dr. May, I think, is online as well. I wonder if Dr. May could comment.
The mode of administration, Dr. Logan, I'm not sure that was described in the comments that came from Ms. Shatri. She might want to tell us about the mode of application.
Good morning, everyone. The mode of administration is under the cube, subcutaneous. So actually the product can be administered to sheep and goat, which is 10 to 30 ml as directed. So honestly, I think is an option, but I want to hear from the expert to see what they think.
Okay, Ms. Chadwick, so I think what I'm hearing is that there is no research done on it as yet, which opens an opportunity for us at St. Augustine, Professor Garcia, to work with your counterparts in the vet school and agriculture, right?
I think you want to say
Yes,
I think you want to say add UAFAJ.
Right. So as I was saying, right, this is an opportunity that which I believe at UAFAJ we could, because work with the faculty here and the vet school to set up an experiment to look at it and use our various statistical techniques to measure the effectiveness of this approach. So this is something that I believe we could use our partnership approach, which we suggest at the executive level between the Faculty of Agriculture here, United Agriculture Farmers Association, and our local farmers in Trinidad or Jamaica to look at the effect of that. And as I would say to you that we in St. Augustine, we have a strong biometrical unit. So any form of research design, whether it's a completely randomized design or complementary randomized block design, we can set up the experiment and do the research and share it to our farmers back in Jamaica. And as General Secretary of UAFA, I will make that commitment, and also as a faculty member in St. Augustine.
Dr. Jones from the vet school is on, and I think he'll be more than willing to contribute in that area.
Okay, thanks, Professor Garcia, for telling us that Dr. Keegan Jones, another of your PhD candidate, right, who is also a veterinary doctor in veterinary and a PhD livestock person. So we can start the discussion, Professor Garcia, with Dr. Keegan Jones and our exec body. I mean, President Wickham, the VPs, we can set it up to see exactly what it is. And as I said, we have the capacity to do the research both in Jamaica and so we could take one set of farms in Jamaica. Case to be a agriculture could be one unit. We could look maybe at other farms in Jamaica. We could also look at farms in Trinidad. We could block them and look at the regional impact. And then we know that, I mean, Cicero and Professor Garcia, you have published in international journals. So we could send it off in journals. Because I would tell you that one of Mr. Cicero research was published in the Pakistan Journal of International Poultry Research, a highly rated journal. So Mr. Lalo is known to publish in international journals. Also Professor Garcia, that's a high impact factor. So this is something we could look at. Mr. Lalo, are you ready to give us your presentation, sir?
While you are doing that, Keegan Jones is saying to be good to look at this from different routes of administration, subcutaneous, IV, etc. So something to look at. And Dr. Jones is
Good day, all.
right there. Yes,
Am
go
I
ahead, Dr.
audible?
Jones. Go ahead.
Yes,
right?
morning all. Just a comment. It would be good to look at. I believe that the first choice treatment will be propylene glycol for animals that have maybe acute diseases and that like the mortality that high on the farm. But it could be a good option for like early detection. So I believe, as Prof was saying initially, if you see early signs, if a veterinarian is on board or you have common knowledge and so on, it would be good to see which of the routes with dextrose or maybe dextrose with some form of mineralized compounds that could be added intravenously or subcutaneously. But ideally, I don't think it's the first choice option, but I believe that it could help. And maybe, as Mr. Palmer was saying, that could be something that we could look into, especially for the Caribbean region. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, sir. Moderator, back to you.
Okay, thanks, President Wickham. We are hoping that Mr. Lalo will join us pretty soon.
While I'm not suggesting that, is it possible for us to, I don't know, his presentation is on, the slides are up. Could we have admin and then, I don't know if one of the professors, whether Professor or Dr. Young, could just go through it with his permission since we're not hearing him. I mean, if when he joins, then we can just allow him to continue. But since the slides are on, could that be something we could use? One of the perhaps Dr. Jones, could we ask him to present? Is that possible? Could we give him co-host admin? Could we do that? I'm just asking. Is that possible?
Sure.
All right. So Dr. Jones, could you just run through the slides for us until Dr. Lalo comes on, please? Donald, you heard what I said just now? All right, good. So Dr. Jones, could you guide us through it until please? Is he hearing us?
Sure.
At this time, let's be reading perhaps, and when he joins, then we have the discussion. Dr. Jones, are you hearing us? Moderator, are you hearing? Are you hearing me?
We're hearing you,
Okay.
President Wickham. I do believe they're trying to sort out
Or the
host.
same Trinidad technical issue.
It would
I see
appear.
Lalo's mic is still on.
Yes.
But he's not speaking. Dr. Jones, can you hear me? Donald, sorry. So Palmer, are you hearing me?
Might I intervene again, Mr.
Yes,
President?
yes, go ahead.
Mr. Lalo, if you can hear us, I'm suggesting that you turn off your video and see whether or not you're able to speak thereafter. Thank you.
Donald, okay to the guys and he'll call you back.
Okay, so I'm by Miss Professor Garcia office trying to start this thing out, right?
You go ahead.
I was
turn him off.
asking.
Okay.
Yes, is he on now?
Trying to sort out a few things here, right?
I was asking if we could ask Dr. Young to present in the meantime. You know, since the slide is there, could we allow that?
Go ahead.
But is he hearing me, Dr. Young? Is he hearing me?
Yes, go ahead.
No, Palm, I'm asking if Dr. Young is hearing me. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. Let I go to my office and see if I can.
Not seen Dr. Young though.
Oh, he has left. There's one of our doctors here, Dr. Patch, what's her name? What's his name again? One of our vets here, locally. What was his name again? Dr. Small, you remember the name that you...
Dr. Logan, you're mentioning?
Dr. Logan, right. Is he still on?
Yes, I'm still on.
Right.
I'm wondering. I mean,
I'm
not certain of the content of the presentation. It might be a bit of a struggle.
No, what I'm saying was asking to read it. It's up. Just asking to read it. I'm using president's privilege now.
All right. I mean, I'll have a go.
So you want so it's up. So just read until he joins, then you can just allow him to continue, in the interest of time. So could you just put it back on the screen for me, admin, please? And Dr. Jones, what's his name? The name slipped me again. Okay.
Logan, Dr.
Logan. Okay, please.
Taught me vet science in college. I remember.
Oh, all right. So
lecturer, man.
All right. All right. Thank you, Dr. Young. Thank you. Dr. Logan, thank you.
All right. Yes, but I'm going to suggest though, is Dr. Young is on?
I'm not sure.
Because Dr. Young could give her presentation next week, and then Mr. Lalo could give this week, and then Mr. Lalo could come in next week in Dr. Young's slot.
Just that we wanted to keep the...
you wanted to keep the topics.
Right.
Okay, all right. And we're not hearing Dr. Young in any case.
No.
All right, no problem. Let me have a go.
All right, please, thanks.
Okay, all right. Yeah, thank you all. All right, so what is pregnancy toxemia? Pregnancy toxemia is a nutritional metabolic disease in small ruminants, which is generally manifested during late gestation. Thus, improper nutrition and management is the main risk factors. These are facts that we've heard from morning, and it's what is worthwhile repeating. So this is caused by insufficient energy in the diet or by a decrease in rumen capacity due to fetal growth. The higher producing animals in the flock are particularly prone. Dairy goats and the animals carrying twins and triplets. All right, next slide, please. Yes, yes, let us repeat what we heard this morning. The disease may lead to abortion and stillbirth, and it may also cause an acute toxemia and death in the ewes and does when the fetus dies in the mother. Pregnancy is a very special period during which the does and ewes must consume sufficient nutrients to maintain maternal body metabolism, as well as to guarantee adequate fetal growth. The female's appetite is suppressed during pregnancy, and the animals remain in negative energy balance for lengthy period, which can inhibit basic cellular processes, including DNA replication and cell cycle progression, and therefore affect the growth and development of the fetal liver. Mobilization of excess fat in this situation may be also may also result from. Glucose is essential for proper functioning of the brain. A deficiency of glucose will result in nervous dysfunction, as we heard this morning, and eventually coma and death may also lead to lipid accumulation in the mother's liver and in the fetal liver as well. Pregnant does and ewes are highly sensitive to environmental changes, thus abrupt alterations in climatic, feeding, environment, and management may induce stress and intestinal microbe changes. I suppose all of that can lead to the glucose shortage that we heard about in the previous presentation. Next slide, please. What is here is a section of the liver, and that infiltration of the fats in the liver to give that liver pathology that was described earlier. This is just a cross-section of the liver showing, what it looks like under the microscope. Yeah, just one sec, please. Yeah, I'm in a presentation. I give you a call later. Yes, so onto the factors that can predispose to this pregnancy toxemia condition. In the last 4 weeks of gestation, the ewe or doe experiences the most rapid fetal growth and demands from the pregnancy, while at the same time experiencing a decline in nutritional intake. The dry matter intake normally is between 1.3 and 1.9% of the body weight. During gestation for hair sheep, it can go up to 3.6% of the body weight during lactation. So once we have this decline in nutritional intake, what this is saying is that we are predisposing the doe to a ketosis-prone metabolic state. We heard a little bit about that in the previous presentation. Flocks or herd with improper nutritional management could experience outbreaks with morbidity rates exceeding 10% of the does or ewes. Mortality rates of affected animal can exceed 80% or greater, especially if treatment is delayed. Pregnancy toxemia can be classified into two general categories, primary and secondary. In the primary type, the toxemia results from a combination of poor nutrition and a sharp increase in energy needs during late gestation. And this one most commonly affects older animals. It can be precipitated by other management or environmental factors. Factors that might predispose a ewe or a doe to development of pregnancy toxemia include the lack of feed, decrease in the feed quality, sudden feed changes, and transportation, or in fact, any other stress during late pregnancy is also important. Next slide. On the other hand, secondary pregnancy toxemia is a result of a condition that causes reduced feed intake and or increased energy needs. So we're looking at things like disease, heavy parasite infestation, such as your roundworms or whatever, coccidiosis, acidosis, water deprivation, hypocalcemia, pneumonia, and just about any other disease that can lead to reduced appetite that ultimately will lead to a decrease in the glucose production, as was alluded to previously. So the primary ketosis or primary pregnancy toxemia is when there's an absolute shortage of nutrients, and the secondary is when there's something else that sort of trigger a decrease in the intake. It is known that a lack of energy supply is responsible for the development of pregnancy toxemia, but it is not likely to be the only major factor, in that pregnancy toxemia develops during late gestation and not during lactation, where the energy demands are at the highest, and that there are known breed-dependent differences. So that's very interesting. In late gestation, the actual need for the animal is about 1.5 times maintenance. During lactation, it is actually about 3 times. Yet, we see this toxemia being developed only in the late gestation and not during lactation. So that's interesting. So what we're actually saying, in other words, the insufficient energy utilization is more than just insufficient energy utilization. That's what that is saying. And the complete lack of energy supply might be a determining factor. Next slide, please. So this is what, can we go back? All right, so that is the introduction in terms of the pregnancy toxemia story. So presumably this section goes specifically into the genetics and breeding practices and management that can help to control the condition. Can I ask Mr. Moderator if the professor is back online to complete the section?
He's not back. I've been querying and he's not on.
All right. Well, let us just complete the presentation then.
Okay, just about Dr. Logan, I would suggest that you continue the presentation, and then when Mr. Lalo comes, if you're in the question, he could take the question.
All right.
You're going very fine. You remind me of my days in college when I taught us medicine. You're doing excellent, man. Go ahead.
Okay, all right then. Thanks for that. All right, so this section, genetics and breeding practices / management. Next slide, please. So the genetic factors associated with pregnancy toxemia. All right, first off, the genetic factors, there's actually higher incidence in sheep than in goats. And that perhaps explains the reason why it is not that common in the Caribbean, because we have, certainly in Jamaica, a lot more goats than sheep. In fact, I remember one lecturer saying that goats behave differently. Goats will prefer to abort the fetus rather than carry the fetus all the way when there isn't sufficient energy. So there's definitely some genetic differences between sheep and goats that can affect the pregnancy toxemia story. Okay, so ewes carrying multiple fetuses, as we heard before, are more prone to negative energy balance during pregnancy and can result in lipid metabolism disturbances and pregnancy toxemia due to the competition of nutrients between mother and fetus. So to use what we have heard before, that what we heard about, that's massive production of the ketone bodies, and the priority, as Dr. Garcia said, the priority that the fetus has for glucose supply. When glucose is short, even when it is in very short supply, the fetus is just going to grab almost all of the glucose, and none will be left for tissues like the brain that's sort of really dependent on the glucose. So suggesting that genetic factors may exert a key role in the development of the multiparous condition. That's the thesis. So genes that encode for fecundity, and I'm not so familiar with that the name of those genes. Bone morphogenetic protein receptors, not familiar with that as well. So these are the genes that presumably play a role in the development of this condition. So all these genes are mutated to varying degrees, controlling reproductive behavior in the sheep. Next slide. So it is these and other genes that increase ovulation and lambing rates, affecting ovarian development, regulating gonadotropin secretion. So the FECB gene is a major gene associated with sheep prolificacy and is a potential candidate gene for genetic control of sheep reproductive performance. So the use with this type, the BB, that's the mutant pure gene, are more susceptible to pregnancy toxemia. It has also been demonstrated that use with multiple pregnancy are more susceptible to pregnancy toxemia as well as the effect of the genes directly. Next slide, please. So with regards to the local hair sheep, while no work have been done, it is highly suspected that the Barbados blackbelly sheep is endowed with the genes for prolificacy. So experience at the Sugarcane Feeding Center at the start of the research on the development of the intensive zero graze production system, there was a very high incidence of pregnancy toxemia among the ewes with multiple fetuses. Barbados blackbelly and their crossbred ewes in our first experiment, this is from the animals and their crossbred ewes in the first experimental gestation batch of ewes. Next slide, please. Okay, so with regards to the management now, so we have heard about how just the possession of certain genes will cause an increase in ovulation rate. So you get a lot more multiple fetus, a lot more twins and triplets, and that, as we have been hearing all morning, is a definite trigger factor for the pregnancy toxemia genes, for the occurrence of pregnancy toxemia, sorry. So on to management now. The recovery from pregnancy toxemia is highly dependent on the stage of the disease when diagnosed and initiation of treatment. So current treatment methods are based on the administration of energy sources. As I had mentioned, the oral glycogenic precursors like propylene glycol. And people are asking about in the chat about the quantity, 60 to 200 ml. And obviously, you have to remove the factors that is increasing the energy requirement of the affected animals. And in the extreme case as well, I'm not certain if that's coming up later in the slide, we might have to do a cesarean section and remove the fetus. Remember, the fetuses are really selfish when it comes to glucose. The mother is short of glucose, but they just keep drawing all the glucose. So there are times when, to save the mother's life, we just have to remove the fetus, or sometimes we have to induce labor so that the fetus can come early. Okay, with regards to nutritional management, and we're going to be repeating some of what you heard this morning. The ewes and does must be supplied with available rations to meet their nutritional requirements during the critical points in the breeding cycle. All right, so we're straying a little bit from pregnancy toxemia, but definitely at the point of mating, early gestation, mid gestation, late gestation, and in lactation, they all require different nutritional management, and it's important for us to recognize that and to give our animals the ration accordingly. Next slide, please. In terms of selecting breeding stock, prior to the breeding season, all breeding stock must be evaluated to ensure soundness of selection. So we have to evaluate the following: Check the teeth, check that the teeth are sound and they're not shaking. Feet are sound with proper stance, no weak or broken pastern. And we're saying all of this because we know the link between lack of appetite and stress, and that can trigger pregnancy toxemia. So if we know we have an animal that's not fit enough for breeding, we just going not worry to breed that animal. So that's what those 2 points are indicating. With regards to the body condition score, something that every farmer must be able to do, we have to evaluate the body condition score, and we should really be selecting animals in that 2, 2.5 to 3, 3.5 score. The ones that are on the thin side, like less than 2, 1, 1.5, must be grouped separately and fed separately so that they can catch up. All right. After selecting animals, animals should be treated for internal parasites. Again, that's in keeping with trying to minimize the stress and just give the animal that pregnancy experience that will sort of really, lessen the chance of any disruption in the fat and glucose metabolism. Next slide, please. Okay, this one is on the significance of pedigree analysis and selecting breeding stock. So this is just some general knowledge. Pedigree, a chart that shows the presence or absence of trait within a family across generations. Pedigrees are used to analyze the pattern of inheritance of a particular trait throughout a family. In order to take advantage of this breeding tool to select breeding stock, farmers are required to keep breeding records that can be analyzed for proper decision making. So due to the course and nature of pregnancy toxemia in the dam, this would be a tall order for the industry. Thus, the need to concentrate on the nutritional management and overall management and selection of animal prior to breeding is advised. So yes, there is that genetic link, but what we're saying that with the low-hanging fruit is the management, including nutrition and overall management. Next slide, please. So strategies for improving the herd flock. Next slide. So we need to evaluate the body condition score at the critical stage of the gestational cycle. The body condition score should be between 3, 3.5 during late gestation. And we want this to be from the point of mating as well. So maybe a little bit high for a lot of farmers, 3, 3.5, but that's the recommendation here. We have to evaluate the flock or the herd to determine those carrying twins and triplets. That is very important because the nutritional needs is going to depend so much on the number, and I would say the weight of the fetuses as well. If they're carrying some really large fetuses and there's a lot, then you're going to find the energy requirements going to really, really be great. So it's good. We don't want to overfeed everybody. We can't afford it anyhow. So it's good to separate those carrying twins and triplets. If you have access to ultrasonography, you can do that. It's going to be well worth the money in savings and in much better overall nutrition for a healthy pregnancy. So animals can be separated into specific management groups according to the body condition score, which is, yes, that's very good. We need to develop a biosecurity protocol with your veterinarian on the farm, also important. And we need to develop a protocol with your veterinarian to control parasites. We all know the importance of parasites in, proper body condition score and, reduce stress and everything. So be on top of your nutritional management game. We have said that repeatedly. Nutritional management should match the stage of production physiological state that the animal is in. So we are emphasizing the really important factors. Next slide, please. All right, I think this is just some points in the production cycle. Next slide. And we'd like to thank you very much for listening to and bearing with me for, having not been so familiar with the with the session. I am hoping that you got something from it, and I'm really hoping that the professor is back on to take the question and to perhaps expound on some of the points that I did not elaborate on well enough. Over to you, Mr. Palmer.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Logan. You did extremely well. And being somebody who knows both you and Mr. Lalu, you did very well. Like, you did just exactly what Mr. Lalu have done, right? So thanks again, and I know, I heard your passion for it, and that is it. So, in the interest of time, we just take maybe 2 comments and 3 questions because we know that we're heading towards.
Palmer, you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Okay.
Okay. Who is speaking now? Mr. Lalu? I see Mr. Lalu is on, but not hearing anything. Okay, so let's go to our chat room here to see exactly if there are any questions.
I think there's a question as to in a presentation, the issue of the dairy goat was mentioned versus the meat goat. For one is more susceptible than the other. What could be the cause of this? And then there's also the whole matter of whether or not you could do ultrasound to determine the number of goats and size of kids inside our fetus. What resources are available locally to assist the farmers with that? So that was 2 questions that jump out.
Okay, great. So because the question asks about locally, right? I would like to turn over that to Dr. Logan, who is actually in Jamaica, a practicing vet, to be more familiar with stuff that are available in Jamaica. So I don't know if Dr. Logan could add some.
All right, let me address the second question, and I see quite a few of my colleagues online as well, so I'm gonna give them a chance to come in. I'm not certain that there was an indication that the dairy goat is more susceptible. What I got from the presentation was that the goats, sheep and goats that tend to have multiple fetuses, a lot of twins and triplets, are more susceptible. I didn't get that the lactating goats, but I mean, you have. I don't know if it's a situation that the dairy goats are more prolific, and if that is the case, that would be an
Okay, Dr. Logan. So I just ask you a few because you're in Jamaica, right? I see there are some colleagues. You maybe could just pass off this portion of the questions to your colleagues because you do them much better than I do. I think there's a Dr. Main on the platform.
Yes, I think there's a Dr. Harris Daly, Dr. May. I don't know if Dr. May had to leave. I don't know if she's back on. But let me just indicate that we do have locally access to ultrasonography with the Jamaica Broilers, Caribbean Broilers group. I'm aware that they do ultrasonography for farmers, and definitely you would be able to determine twins and triplets and the size of the fetuses. You probably would have that from your own birth records. All right, so I'm going to be asking if any other vets in Jamaica can come in and assist with the discussion.
Okay, Dr. Logan.
Can you hear me?
Who's this? Professor Garcia?
Lalo is now.
Do you hear me?
Lalo.
Yes, I heard Mr. Lalo. Welcome, man. Finally up and running. Yes, go ahead, Mr. Lalo.
On again.
Mr. Lalo, could you turn off? Okay, he's turning off his video, right?
For pregnancy at 60 days. Then based on that, you could separate those animals that are with multiple births compared to singles in separate group and feed and manage them separately.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes, man, we are
You
hearing
heard
you.
me? Yeah,
Yes, I
yeah.
heard you.
So I know there are tools that can be used, but I don't know if maybe only the vets in Jamaica may have those equipment, but I stand to be corrected.
Okay, Mr. Lalu. And President Wickham, is there
Yeah.
any question in the chat that you want to address? Because I have some difficulty reading from this side here in Trinidad.
I am not seeing any question in the chat. I know Dr. Mattox is on, Clover Mattox. I don't know if she wants to make any comment in regards to the questions that were raised, as well as Dr. Logan had called out his other colleagues. If there are any other comments they want to share, then they could do so. We'll be happy to hear it. And also, if any farmer wants to,
just try to
also if any farmer wants to share any first-hand experience they've had, you know, that could feed into a question, that would be worthwhile here right now. Okay.
Could I, Leroy McLean, could I get back to, can we go back to the genetics aspect of the issue we're discussing? Hello?
Yes. Go ahead, Dr.
Yes. No, I fully understand and appreciate the point about dealing with nutrition, because this is the, as was mentioned, the low hanging fruit, and one which farmers would best be able to utilize in order to avoid this problem. I am told that in Barbados, whereas we have some farmers where you don't have a problem at all, island-wide, we suspect it could be close to 10% pregnancies where we see the toxemia rising. Now, and this is why I'm particularly interested in the genetics aspect of it, because if we are going to be building an industry, a sheep industry, because in Barbados we are talking about having a black belly sheep industry, not just people raising sheep. It means that we have to invest a bit more in research, and the genetics of the genetic aspect is one which we have not done much work in so far, and I believe we need to make a greater effort. And when I started to research this area, it seems as though this GYS2 gene, which is responsible for basically producing the glucose synthesis, is a very important gene in this regard. And perhaps if we can find the means of doing it, probably some source of funding, this is one of the areas that I believe that we could start doing some research in. And I asked also about the, I don't know if Sister Rokin can answer this question as to whether you see it more prevalent in the younger youths or in older youths. Because I heard for example, they could say that sometimes you see blindness taking place in the animals suffering from pregnancy toxemia. And this seems to be to parallel in some regards diabetes in humans, because a number of the symptoms that you see in the animals with pregnancy toxemia actually are symptoms that you see in human beings with diabetes. So this is why I don't know, Sister Reeve, can tell me what is the sort of, whether the young ewes or older ewes that you see this condition more prevalent in.
All right. Let me just put in my 2 cents, and then others can come in. I don't have a lot of experience dealing with clinical pregnancy toxemia in terms of it's not very common in the location that I practice. However, the younger animals will still be completing their growth. So the younger animals from that point of view might be more prone to this running out of energy story. On the other hand, the younger animals tend to have more singles, and the older animals tend to have the multiple fetuses. So that is something that is going against that and say, okay, this is more common in the older animals because they are more likely to have twins and triplets. By far, the most important trigger factor really is whether they carry twins and triplets and the size of those fetuses. If you have an animal carrying 3 fetus that's going to have like 8 pounds, 10 pounds at birth weight, it's almost impossible to feed that animal adequately during pregnancy. Just like what we heard about how difficult it is to feed animals during lactation. So the number of fetuses and the size of the fetus, very important trigger factor in pregnancy toxemia. But I'm really not certain if we do have a higher incidence in younger or older animals. Next person, please.
So my question, Dr. Logan. So if it is that it's almost impossible to feed the animals with so many fetuses, what do you do? What do you do?
No, I'm not saying that's impossible to feed. I'm just saying that if I was just illustrating the point that if you have an animal carrying triplets and they're very large, fortunately, most animals that carry triplets tend to have smaller fetuses, so that's it usually balance out. So that the weight, the total weight of the fetuses in the womb tend to be constant. But I'm just saying that when you do get a case, all right, let us say we get a case with a very young animal that is still growing, and she has triplets for some reason, and they're all big. Maybe she got overfed during early pregnancy, and they're all big. That animal is very likely to go into pregnancy toxemia because sometimes the amount of energy that that animal requires, the amount of carbohydrates, the amount of glycogen and all of that, even to burn the fats that she's going to be pulling on, maybe it's just not there. So what to do? What we have to do is to do, a lot was said about grouping animals, about keeping the animals at an ideal body condition score and all of that. So that is what we as farmers need to do. We need to follow the advice of the persons who are telling us about proper management.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Logan, for your presentation.
Palmer?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, one of the things, as I said, mentioned earlier, when I first started work on ewes, looking at different models to put with ewes at the Sugarcane Feed Center, the first batch of animals that we had, because we were feeding sugarcane, and at that time we were looking at byproduct feeding, and actually in the last trimester we had some of our diets had as much as 20% molasses in it, and we had quite a number of animals coming down with pregnancy toxemia. As you know, molasses will produce butyric acid, and so it's not gluconogenic. Well, our subsequent batches, we cut down the molasses to not more than 5% in the diet. And what we did was to add cracked corn to those animals in the last trimester. And having done that, we realized that in subsequent thing, we didn't have that kind of problem. And we had Barbados black belly that would have given you quintupets. And they didn't come down with pregnancy toxemia.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Lalo, for your contribution here. So a question I said President Wickham asked is to ask if there is any farmer there could share what sheep or goat breed they have and what has been their experience been, I guess, related to pregnant toxemia. So I think, I'm not so sure what I don't know if President Wickham had said how this webinar came around, but it was one of our members who said he had a goat, a Boer goat that came with pregnant toxemia, and we had a lot of discussion on it. So I don't know if that member is online. I would like to share his experience. And then after that, I will hand over to you, President Wickham, for your closing remarks.
I just, while that question is being fielded, I just want to ask Lalo if he could make a little more pronouncement on the breeding practices. You know, the subject is the area of genetics and breeding practice. I didn't hear much coming out in the breeding practices itself. So I don't know if he has some more to say on that area of the practices itself. While the farmer may come on, I'm sure he will come on.
I am on.
Okay, there's a question here from
Mr. Parchment. Mr. Parchment, go ahead.
No, that's a question. That's a thing. So next week, right? Next week, Tuesday, the first webinar will be on animal selection and breeding strategies. So the question that you are asked, you will be answered there by the veterinary officer who we had asked to do that, right? So do you know Mr. Parchment? Mr. Enrico Parchment, you could go ahead.
Yes. Well, I wasn't aware of the problem then when it happened, but when this discussion started, I said, oh, that was the case because she was carrying triplet. And she was looking very good. And then all of a sudden she just take down sick and then lose the kid and then she dies after.
Okay, Mr. Parchment.
What breed was it? What breed was it?
It was a boar.
Boar. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the for some reason, even the information coming out of the States is that the boars tend to be prone to pregnancy toxemia if they're not managed nutritionally properly. You tend to get that. But recently, there's a farmer that I'm working with, and he had a really lovely Barbados black belly animal. She might have been running a little bit too fat, but she was really lovely, good sheen, everything, and she was moving around. And then suddenly, I got a call from him. When I went down there, the animal died, and he couldn't really tell why she died. When I look at the animal and so on, I suspected that that animal died from pregnancy toxemia.
Okay.
So, it's much the same way, the animal was walking around looking good, and so on. But that animal actually was carrying a triplet.
Okay, Mr. Lalu. So I see Miss Kathy Leon raising her hand, so she could unmute and ask a question or make a comment.
Hi, good morning, everybody. This is Dr. Kathy Leon. I'm with HiPro, and I'm also a vet. And I just wanted to remind the farmers that are on that one of the most important skills or tools that you have is observation. And even when if your animal is going to have a problem with preg tox, you have a pregnant animal, the observation of what is going on with that animal is what's going to trigger you to action. And I find that a lot of the animals go unobserved. And so when the symptoms happen, a lot of times they're already too far gone for any of the treatment plans to be as effective as we would like them to be. So I want us to just remember that the very initial signs that were discussed earlier today in terms of the listlessness and the stargazing and this kind of looking like they're drunk. We don't want to wait until they look very drunk before we start to intervene, especially when we know that they're pregnant. Another issue I find with management is a lot of farmers have no idea when their goats are pregnant. And in Jamaica, we have we have more goats than we do sheep. We do have both, but generally we have a lot more goats. And we don't know when they're pregnant. We only know when they're pregnant when we see the goat springing. And that's a big issue. So we need to enhance a number of things about the way we farm our goats in order to even start to truly be able to address issues like preg tough. One of the things you need to know is when did your goat get bred? How far along is she? Right? A lot of farmers run me down for ultrasound, but the truth is, if you knew when your goat got bred, you would have a better idea of how to feed during early pregnancy and a better idea of how to feed for late pregnancy. I want to thank Prof. Garcia for that info and Dr. and Mr. Lalo for that info on the leguminous plants and the cracked corn and the propionate precursors. That's very valuable information. Thank you for that. And I just want to remind us again, observation, 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 and hand-in-hand record keeping is going to be key in making sure that you get the best kind of production out of your goats. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Leon, for that piece of advice. And I think Professor Garcia would like to make a small comment about some management practices. Over to you, Professor Garcia.
Dr. Leon, your comment about observation is very, very pertinent. And what a farmer could have is just like a little clipboard, an observation checklist of his pregnant animals. And he have a little pen where every day he go, he watches observation checklist, check it out. And any animals that he see not looking thrifty, take them out and put them in a special pen. And then treat those animals individually with a little bit better feed or something. Because that daily observational checklist is key to success. Because you can't wait till you see the problem to try to solve the problem. It's too late. Thank you, Dr. Leon.
Okay, thanks, Professor Garcia, for that point. And Dr. Logan is asking, Professor Salalo, is genetic susceptibility related only to one gene controlling fluidicity? As you say, it was out here in the slide. So maybe we could elaborate on that, Mr. Lalu. You heard the question?
Fecundity.
Could we read it for you?
Yeah, Mr. Lalo. Dr. Logan had asked about the gene controlling fecundity. Could you comment on that?
Are you hearing us, Mr. Lalu? Wow. And our next question, maybe another vet or Professor Garcia could add this. How would molasses be added in the diet of a pregnant goat?
Just mix it with the forage. So you have the goat forage is usually be hanging. So with the pregnant goat, you might have a little bit of concentrate or something like that, or dry leaves, and you could wet the dry leaves with the molasses.
Okay, Prof. And
how regular should be though?
Okay, somebody was making a comment here.
It's all regular.
All regular.
Right.
He's asking the regularity here. All regular should you do this?
Oh, only once a day. Because what molasses usually helps to do is give you a little bit of glucose precursors, not plenty, and it helps to stimulate the animal to eat because it increases palatability and it also decreases the dustiness of if you have the concentrate or anything like that.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Can I make a comment here?
Okay, go ahead, Dr. McLean.
Yeah. First on the molasses, one of the things that should be avoided with the pregnancy toxemia is any consumption of alcohol, and therefore the possibility of fermentation taking place. And I think Lalo, he mentioned reduction in the amount of molasses that was used and the benefits that were derived. So if you have any feed, and also there was mention of not using old grass. So if there's any chance of fermentation taking place and the possible production of alcohol, that could also be very harmful to the animals. Now, with respect to the link with the fecundity, gene for fecundity, I don't think that really there's a link there necessarily, because in Barbados, the black belly giving 3 lambs triplets is a norm, almost. You know, if a farmer has a ewe that gives less than 2 lambs, basically he gets rid of it. So twins and triplets is very common, and I think the problem is not necessarily the number of lambs, but the ability of the ewe to manage them nutritionally, and I believe that this has something to do with the genetic predisposition for the disease.
Okay, thanks, Dr. McLean, for that explanation. So Yannick Scott is asking a question. For a Boro goat, if one does not have access to the IV injection mentioned, what would be the best regime treatment practice for pregnant toxemia once suspected, realized, or observed gestation 110 to 112 days? And I think a veterinary officer would be best be able to address this question. Dr. Logan?
Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Okay, so the question is, for a Boro goat, if one does not have access to IV injection mentioned, what would be the best regime treatment plan for pregnant toxemia once suspected or realized or observed during the gestation period of 110 to 112 days?
All right, actually, I'm looking at a post from Yannick Scott that says it all in terms of the oral treatment with the propylene glycol. That is what I'm very familiar with. And so we could check the chat box, and it is there. Oral propylene glycol, or as Professor Garcia said, the glycerin. That is what I know. That's what I'm familiar with. Okay.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Logan. So at this point in time, I would want to say thanks to all persons who stood with us for this presentation. And just in closing, I would just ask Professor Garcia if he'd have any final words that you want to say to your participant, and also ask Dr. Robert Logan, our substitute presenter, if he has any closing remarks that you'd want to say to the participant, and then I'll hand it over to President Rican to continue the proceeding. Go ahead, Professor Garcia.
I would just say I must apologize for bad communication network system at St. Augustine, but the PowerPoint is free for everybody to share, and it was my pleasure to interact with you all and to compliment my colleague, Mr. Lalo. Do have a nice day all.
Thank you.
Okay, great, Professor Garcia. Dr. Logan?
Hi, good morning. I have one more question if possible.
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I recently acquired a ultrasound machine, and I'm, trying to improve my pregnancy detection skills. So I'm wondering if there is an online course or any material where free or otherwise I could pay to, improve my skills.
Okay.
Other than YouTube.
And you are Yannick Scott?
Correct.
Okay.
And you check YouTube already, right?
Yes, I use YouTube, but if there is any, formal training available.
Okay.
I'm sure it's something we can explore.
Right.
Well, you could probably check some of those universities, like University of Florida and those places.
Okay, great. So I'll ask Dr. Logan for his final comments, and also Mr. Lalu, if you want to have any final comments to the participants. So Dr. Logan, over to you,
Okay,
sir.
I would just like to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to contribute. Hope I did a little justice to the excellent preparation Mr. Lalo put together.
You certainly
So,
did.
say thanks.
I'm proud of you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm proud of you, Dr. Logan. And I'm telling you, one of a past student, I'm extremely proud of you, the way which you deliver. I know. I was wondering if I was taking another vet course from you in college. Mr. Lalu?
Yeah. Yeah, let me say thanks for offering me the opportunity to be able to partake in the seminar and to share. I'm very, very sorry and I apologize for the technical difficulties, but we also been having some internet problem on this side because so I don't know what is, but I will endeavor next time to eradicate that problem, right? And I trust that the information will be and would be useful to all who attend this seminar. And best of luck to everyone.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Lalu, and thanks to all the presenters. And then I just want to hand over to President Wickham for you to continue with the program. Thanks again for all those who have attended and participate and asked questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I want to thank all the presenters and the fill-in presenter, Dr. Logan. And truly, I do appreciate the fact that the teamwork was evident today. And it's always important to have the cadre of persons in our midst who can deliver, and ultimately our farmers benefit greater as a result of our coming together like this. I'm sure once we have technical issues, we just have to pivot and do what we have to do in order to get the information out. So all the presenters, all the participants, the moderator, the admin person, I want to say thanks to you. Next week, Tuesday, same time, we will be looking at the animal selection and breeding, as well as nutrition for for healthy pregnancies. Let me repeat. We'll be looking at animal selection and breeding strategies and nutrition for family. I made the same mistake. Let me go back again. Next week, we'll be looking at animal selection and breeding strategies, as well as nutrition for healthy pregnancies. I think I got it right this time. We look forward to your coming next week and to ask you to share it with other farmers, because several farmers have been experiencing the problems, but they don't know what it is, and they just consider that it was bad luck. Hence, we are seeking to inform them, and we are asking you to share it with others and ask them to join with us next week and the following 2 weeks. Again, I ask more so for the farmers who are here and other persons that if you want a certificate at the end of the 4-week presentation, we are asking to make a contribution of 2,000 Jamaican dollars. We have put out the account banking information earlier, but if not, you could still call us and we'll get the information to you. I want to thank you very much for your time, and I ask that you have the rest of the day as a good day. Thank you all for coming and participating. See you next week. Thank you.
Thank you too.
Just letting you know, the other slide will be out, the other flyer will be out very soon, and you are just to sign up as usual. Thank you.